Hi, everybody. Andrew Payne here alongside J.D. Fox for this week's edition of Champagne and J.D. If you're just tuning in for the first time, first of all, welcome. Thank you very much for spending some time with us here. If you like what we do, go on down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out with all those fun metrics that YouTube does to try to give us a bigger audience. At any rate, we've got a great show coming up this week. Big weekend up at Woodbine, among other places. So we're going to take a look at the late pick four at Woodbine. And as always, JD, we've got a tremendous guest. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway because that's just the kind of guy I am. If you watch one of our favorite shows, the Magic Mike Show over on the Racing Dudes Network, you know this guy. He is a very strong contest player. We'll be diving into that. Tremendous handicapper and a guy whose seat we were both proud to keep warm while he was doing various things during the month of August. Mike Somich is with us. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Looking forward to covering this Woodbine Pick 4. This thing is a menace. We were talking about it before the show. I'm looking forward to hearing the opinions and the angles you guys use up there. Woodbine is mainly a contest track for me, so I'm excited to dive into this one.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, for those of you who are new to Woodbine or are just looking at this card, remember, 20-cent multi-race exotics. When you have fields that are this size, that is a big, big help because you can get reasonable amounts of coverage for not a lot of money. And if you take a stand and you're right, the reward is still there because pretty much everybody is playing for that 20-cent minimum bet. It's not as much of a disparity as you may otherwise think. We will get there, we promise. There are a couple of other things that we need to take care of first. JD, what's that first thing in the discussion section there?
All right, so with my travels last week, we did not do a show. So it is time for what we always used to call the victory lap on this show, as Andrew Champagne will discuss his Saratoga all-media handicapping title. Andrew, take it away.
So I'm going to tell a story that JD is probably begging me not to tell. If you tuned into our most recent show a couple of weeks ago with Caitlin Free, first of all, Caitlin, hi, how you doing? Doing great work over at the Keeneland sale as we type this. So JD busted my chops a little bit and likened my chase to top my previous best of 128 winners to a baseball player that's hung up on 2,998 or 2,999 hits. When you start pressing and that stretch turns into, a week, 2 weeks, whatever, it turns into a slump. The very next day was the last Friday of the Saratoga meet. If you followed me, you know where this is going. First race, 3-1 third choice. I go to my handy phone and I text JD 125. Second race, odds on horse comes in for Brad Cox. Really nice horse going first time on the turf. 126. Third race, a bomb comes in. Nobody had, so he was spared that. Fourth race, Ruse at 9-1 goes wire to wire. Called that one on Twitter. 127. Fifth race, Chalk comes in. 128. And it was at that point, JD texted me and goes, "All right already, please stop." Well, that wasn't the whole story because JD later in the card, when I had my pick 4 that I put out on Odds Checker US, said, "I'm fading you. You're done for the day." I gave out a $30 pick 4 that hit for $387. I wound up 8 for 10 on the day, and I wound up with 142 top pick winners throughout the Saratoga meet. If you're asking me to repeat what happened on that particular Friday, no, I can't do it. That is a once-in-a-lifetime day for me on a lot of different levels. But yeah, it was a heck of a meet, and that was a heck of a day. And JD, I'm going to put you on the spot. What did you learn?
Okay, well, so it was 8 out of 10 top pick winners. But Mike, you have a co-host that you love, and we love him on the show too, Curtis. If Curtis was on a run like that, you would do the fade pick 4 as well, just to make sure he got through the finish line. Which the fade pick 4, what it was, is I took all of his top choices and I threw them off the board, and then played my normal ticket, just to make sure he got there. And 3 of the 4, got there. So that was just me being a good co-host. That's how I look at it, Mike.
I mean, JD just took one for the team, right? That's just helping get Andrew's winners home. I mean, honestly, Andrew, that's an amazing day. And you did a great job of recapping it, too. But the 8 of 10 on top at Saratoga is exceptional. That's one of those tracks. I've only swept one card. That is one of the tracks I would love to sweep someday, just because Saratoga to me is just it's a handicapping nightmare, and it's a handicapping just wondrous place as well, because it's tough with all these horses coming from different tracks. Everyone's keyed up for that meet. You're getting the best effort from a lot of those horses. So it's hard to be right time and time again.
It is, and it's something. And to give you an idea of the standard that I hold myself to and what I was raised, my dad texted me after the day was over, and he cited a guy by the name of Russ Harris, who was the lead handicapper in the New York Daily News for many, many, many years, known for sweeping a couple of cards at Belmont. And my dad texted me and goes, it's not quite a Russ Harris day, but you did okay. I said, yeah, thanks, Dad. Appreciate that.
Did you look back and figure out why you missed the other two, right?
One of them I could never have had, even with the all button. It was an 11-1 shot in a 6-horse field that honestly probably paid more like a 30-1 shot in the pick 4 and pick 5. And in the last race, I went with a first-time starter that dropped anchor, and my third selection wound up winning. So it's not like I was far off of that either.
The 5-horse was a Diodoro that went wire to wire, right?
Yes.
That
That
horse was impossible. You're never getting to that horse.
You needed the all button for that one. I didn't feel too bad. And then in the last race, I believe it was my favorite trainer, Chad Brown, who saddled one of those. And that wound up, I still hit the pick 4. I believe it was the longest shot of the 5 that I used there. So I can't exactly complain about all of that. But before we go further, on a serious, non-gimmicky, non-sticky note, if you followed my stuff during Saratoga, thank you. Know that I really appreciate it. Know that it's really, really cool to be able to do what I do every day during Saratoga. 10 months out of the year, I am a relative nobody. This place back here is the place where I make the donuts. And this summer, that's what I did. And I hope I was able to help some of you make some money. I hope you enjoyed following along with what I did. I mean, it's always a fun thing to look at the stats on my website, which I don't do paid ads for. I don't do Google search. I don't do any of that stuff. I just post my stuff there every day for people to read. And at the end of Saratoga, I had just shy of 22,000 hits on andrewchampagne.com from the start of the meet through Labor Day. So that's it's just unbelievable, the traffic that site got. And hopefully y'all enjoyed reading my stuff, and hopefully I've got some more winners in my back pocket and I didn't just use them all for the year, those 8 weeks.
And because you were a good sport and you sat through that, Mike, we're gonna focus on some contests here. And while that was going on, you were taking part in a delayed 2021 NHC taking place in Las Vegas. And I feel like we're finally getting back to normal. I was at a track last week, Kentucky Downs. It had to feel back normal being in a contest room like that and not, doing it from home like you have been for so long during this pandemic.
Yeah, it was great to be back in Vegas. And you got to give props to NTRA. They pushed this thing out way, I think it was almost last August or last November, saying, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it next August instead of in January when NHC generally runs. So they did a great job finding a time, and then being able to actually execute was wonderful. Got about 450 people in the same room, around 550 entries. And it was an absolute blast. If you've never had the opportunity to play one of these contests, they are so much fun to just go and play and sit with other people who love horse racing. I mean, that's one of the keys for me. I mean, I live around people who have no clue what horse racing is. So for the opportunity to go to one of these places and sit with 4 to 5 to 6 other people that genuinely love it and be able to talk horses and go through that, it's absolutely wonderful. And I'm fortunate. I had a great NHC experience in 2020. Sat with Ken Jordan on the first day. He was in the Hall of Fame. Nicest guy ever. He was absolutely awesome to me. Made me feel very comfortable with that. And then BC, I got to sit with a couple great people, and then we kind of formed a relationship down at Gulfstream. And up at Keeneland when I played, it was the exact same thing. And so it's just amazing to see the same people over and over again. You kind of form these bonds, and you're rooting for people to win. Obviously, you want to win yourself, but you've got people that you're sitting there that you have a real camaraderie that you build with.
Yeah, and you had 2 entries this year, and I think you learned some things about having 2 entries in the NHC that you can apply for next year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had 1 entry in 2020, was able to cash it, so that was nice. So I had all this confidence going into 2021. Like, I got 2. I'm going to crush this. There's no way one doesn't get home.
Welcome to Vegas.
Oh, man, first day just flipped me on my head. I came in with a strategy, which I still think is probably optimal. It's just really hard to execute, where you have 4 horses that are the same out of your 10 optionals, and they're kind of your keys for the day. And then the other 12 optionals split between 6 on each card. You use the best long shots that you like so that you have some variance. But man, when you pick 4 horses that are 8 to 12 to 1 morning line and they all go off sub 5 to 2 and you can't use any of them, all of a sudden you're scrambling for 8 more alternates. And then, I was lucky enough to hit a 16 to 1 in the first mandatory race. So then I had a clear A ticket and a B ticket. And now I'm trying to decide which optional should go on which ticket and what's going on. And then there's 13 races in an hour going over here and you don't even hear the Gulfstream feed. And it's a lot. So if I am lucky enough, I have 1 entry right now for 2022. If I'm lucky enough to have 2, my plan is to just go with the same 10 optionals on that first Friday and just, say, hey, trust your best 10 picks, see where it gets you, and then recalibrate for Saturday and figure out how to get one of those 2 entries into the money.
With the compacted schedule coming up, because obviously the delayed 2021 NHC means we've got the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge right around the corner, and then we're going to the traditional timing for the 2022 NHC, getting it back on track, and obviously Michelle Ravencraft and her team at the NTRA doing a great job with that. It's chaotic right now, and I know you're playing a lot of contests, including one around Woodbine this weekend.
Yeah, it is. Chaotic is an understatement. Horse Tourneys has done a wonderful job with a Triple Crown series where there's now 3 tournaments online that have winning pools or the winner's payout is over $250,000. So that runs 3 times a year. The next one is in January. This weekend is the big one. It's 57 people entered. There's 10 seats for BCBC and NHC and an additional $150,000 cash. I'm fortunate enough that I won one of those seats way back in February, so I'm in that. We just had NHC. We've got BCBC in November. We've got the Flow Cow, which is a $300K minimum pick pool on it, Horse Tourneys in January. We've got the Pegasus in January, and then we've got NHC in February. So because of this, it is just a wild schedule. But I got to say, tournaments have taken a huge step forward in the last 2 years. If you're not checking it out, it's definitely worth checking it out now. The online game is now wildly populated with some of these big payout tournaments. It's becoming more and more like poker, where you can play, probably 10 of them a year now, where you're making over 100,000 if you win it. And there's a couple that are. There's 2 that are over $500,000, and there's 5 or 6 others that are over 300,000 now. So those pools are doing nothing but getting bigger, and it's a great way to play for a little bit and be able to win a lot. And
you mentioned it just like poker. You can satellite into it, and that's a key. And then Andrew's got some questions.
Yeah, we sort of talk over each other sometimes. It's sort of our thing. But the 2 questions. One, if it's like poker, does that mean that people who play it for joy and don't have a problem are now somehow felons? And 2, this is the actual honest-to-God serious question that I was looking forward to asking you was, what's one thing about playing in tournaments that most people don't know, but that they absolutely should?
So number 1, no, you can play in any state, and there's absolutely no issue, Andrew. I'm with you, man. Black Friday was brutal. Number 2, the key to pretty much any tournament and what type of horse you should select is understanding what it takes to win. That sounds really, really simple. But as JD mentioned, you can satellite into a lot of these things. Some of those satellites, you get 1 out of every 5 people get a seat. Some of them are 1 out of every 10. Some are 1 out of every 20. Some are 1 out of every 67. And some are 1 out of every 165. Some are cash tournaments where you want to win the tournament, but the top 10 pay. In each one of those scenarios, you should be picking different horses, because against where you're 1 in 5, horses that are 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 are very useful. But if you're 1 in 67, a 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 is actually losing equity in that race. Because if someone hits a 10 to 1 or 12 to 1 and you're sitting on this 5 to 2 shot, you're losing the opportunity cost of having one of those longer prices, which is absolutely critical to be able to win the tournament. So the first thing I tell people is you have to understand your goal when you're going into these, and then shape your handicapping around your goal. If you need to beat 5 people, you don't need to have long shots. If you need to beat 67, you better be playing some prices.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's one of those instances where some of it depends on who you're going against. You get the pick and praise. You don't necessarily know if you're in those live money tournaments where you can see where you stand in relation to others. That's when a lot of fun game theory scenarios start rolling in your head. You're going, okay, do I want to protect my lead? How much do I bet? Who do I bet? There's a lot going on. And it's something that a lot of people who know a lot about the game have written some very good good books on, and there's a lot of good stuff out there for those of you who want to learn a little bit more about tournament play. There's a lot of avenues with which to do that, and it doesn't cost a whole heck of a lot of money to get started either. There are some very small tournaments out there, less than $12 if you want to get started somewhere. So there's a lot of avenues that you can take in order to become a better contest player, both as far as reading goes and as far as cheap experience goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. If you go into horse tourneys and you want to play a cash game, there's a $12 cash game with a $500 guarantee pretty much every single day across any major racetrack. If you're looking to qualify for BCBC or looking to qualify for NHC, horseplayers.com has tournaments that cost $18 to buy into, $20 to buy into. And then you can get into those main satellites where you're trying to get a seat to play a $10,000 voucher, it's $7,500 voucher at BC in the Breeders' Cup with a $2,500 of that going to the prize pool. And it's an amazing experience. Those live money tournaments that you were mentioning, Andrew, where you sit there with a bankroll and you're trying to just get the highest bankroll, it blows your mind. It's hard to adjust to those. I played BCBC the first time last year and played a $2,000 cold exacta. I mean, and then you're just sitting there and you're like, what did I just do? But it's that kind of stuff that you have to do to be able to win. And it's mind blowing where it gets to, and you got to play a couple. I mean, I was fortunate enough to win the Lone Star tournament on the Friday of that series to qualify for NHC next year. And I ended up betting every dime I had on a single horse to win so I could win the tournament because that's what it took to get an NHC. I was fortunate enough that the horse came home at 5-2, but that's an example where playing 5-2 shots awfully valuable if you got, $1,800 to win on it.
Yes, as we mentioned, one of the cool things I will say between horse players and horse tourneys, that's a shared wallet system as well. So you deposit into one place. You like something on horse tourneys, you like something on horse players. It's one shared wallet between the two sites, which I think is really cool. And I will not bemoan this podcast with a couple of my bad beats from this past year in terms of not qualifying for
Thank
NHC,
you.
because Andrew always has to sit front and center for those. And I feel really bad about the texts when they happen. I had a couple really bad ones at Santa Anita, but
yeah,
you could get some brutal beats in tournaments because sometimes you need a horse to place and pay $4 and it pays $3.80, or you lose a place photo and the other person doesn't have anything in there. It's just, there's some wild beats. I mean, sometimes you need the perfect order where it has to run 8-6 for you to lose, and it runs 8-6. And just like, come on, that's a 20-1 over an 18-1. How's that happen?
Yeah, my worst beat, I'll just say quickly, 20 cents.
Yeah,
I missed out on NHC seat by 20 cents this year. So there you go.
Ow.
That's brutal.
Ow.
It's really rough. So now we're going to move on to the key part of this show. We're going to be covering Saturday's late pick 4 at Woodbine, $250,000 guarantee. That is U.S. dollars. That is not a Canadian guarantee. That is a U.S. dollar guarantee. And again, this is a big 2 days coming up at Woodbine. It is their turf festival Saturday and Sunday. So lots of good action. You can catch it on NBCSN here in the States, and you can have your second screen experience through America's Best Racing. On Saturday, you'll be lucky enough to be joined by myself and by Mike. So we're going to have a lot of fun and hopefully get you home some winners. The one thing I will say going into this, we've all seen each other's tickets, and this sequence is very interesting solely based upon the lack of common ground we have. But the one race where we do share some common ground is going to be the first race of this sequence, which is going to be the Patterson Canadian International. This has been a major race for a long time. Secretariat once won this race. It's a grade 1. 3-year-olds end up going 1.5 miles on turf. We've got the 8 horses there. The 8-5 morning line favorite, Walton Street, comes in for Charlie Appleby. And Andrew, looking at this field, obviously Walton Street and Desert Encounter are the favorites according to the morning line. And I'm going to go ahead and lead here because I think you have to make a strong opinion in taking both of them here. I know this looks like a place where you have to make a stand, but I do see this race as these are 2 A's if you're doing a grid system, and I don't see any B's. And I don't particularly see any C's. I see 2 horses in this race, and you have to look at kind of the running lines and figure out what is a better form flatterer. So Walton Street coming off of a race in Germany, finished 3rd. The horse in front, Torquator Tasso, is going to go in the arc. Very strong fields there. And then Desert Encounter, all Desert Encounter has done is win this race the last 2 times it was held, hoping to become the first consecutive 3-time winner. The other 3-time winners, Joshua Tree. And you look at the last running line, a second, now it was by 3 3/4 to Tiona. And all Tiona did this past weekend was beat Snowfall. So, I mean, these are some quality horses shipping in to Woodbine. But unfortunately, in this race, I think there's 2 quality horses, 2 and 3. You'll see as my ticket progresses that this will make sense, but I'm not taking a stand here. But Mike, I know you're taking a stand, and you are going with Walton Street.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think these are the 2 obvious, A1 horses. But for me, when I look at a race like this is kind of one of my general philosophies, especially if I want to spread later. I don't like using both of the horses in this spot. I think that long run, it puts you in a negative EV situation, especially if you're using some favorites. And so if you want to use favorites throughout, and kind of how I try and build it is find a way to make this thing pay a little bit. I'm actually going to play a couple tickets here, which we'll talk about as we go through. I generally play multiple tickets in a single sequence. And I'll generally play a ticket at the minimum base, in this case, 20 cents. And then I'll play a press ticket where I'll have it 10 times. So I have a $2 ticket I'm going to play as well. And to me, the key to the sequence here is the 2-horse Walton Street. I respect the heck out of Desert Encounter, don't get me wrong. But I look through this Walton Street past performances, and I think this horse is sitting on a big one. I don't see it having any issue coming here and being able to do the 1.5 miles at Woodbine. I love the wins 2 and 3 back, or 3 and 4 back. And that race 2 back at Dubai, running 4th in that race is pretty darn good, especially when you have Mischief, Chromo Genius, who came back to win, and Loves Only You, who also came back to win. So that race comes back very strong. I like the second off the layoff here. I think Applebee's got this horse sitting on a huge one. And to me, it was trying to find something to separate the 2. And I felt like the 2-horse here, Walton Street, is a little bit better than the 3. Am I scared of the 3? Heck yeah. But I do think that the 2 has an advantage here because it's going to be closer to the pace. If you watch its races, it wants to be more forwardly placed, and there's not a ton of speed in here. I mean, you have the cheap speed in the 5, and after that, I'm not really sure who else is going to go.
Exactly, and it's between the 2 and the 3. Obviously, you're taking a stand, Mike, and Mr. Champagne, you're going to take a stand as well.
Let me get one thing out of the way right now. If the Walton Street that showed up at Meydan this past spring shows up on Saturday, Walton Street's going to win. That's just the way that it is. But I look at the time form ratings. I look at the races this horse has run elsewhere, and I just think this horse loves Meydan, and there's nothing wrong with that. My goodness, look at the purses. If you get a horse that likes Meydan, you're doing just fine. But I looked at the race that horse ran last time out, and I've just never been impressed by the top end of the Germany racing scene. It's a cut below the likes that you see in Great Britain and France. Walton Street's supposed to win that race, and he didn't. To me, that's a red flag, and he comes halfway across the world. The trainer means business. I respect the heck out of Charles Appleby. First-time Lasix is usually a really good angle, and if Walton Street beats me, Walton Street beats me. I'll tip my hat to him. But you're telling me that a defined horse for course in Desert Encounter comes in second off of a layoff for a very talented trainer, comes back to the surface where he's done his best running, and isn't going to be favored, might well drift up a little bit from that 3-1 morning line price. Okay, that's how I'm going to create value in this sequence. Mike, I agree with a lot of what you said as far as ticket construction goes. I think you need to create value, and my way of creating value is going to be if Desert Encounter wins, a lot of tickets are going to go up in smoke because the favorite, Walton Street, is going to be on a lot of tickets. And I think Desert Encounter will pay bigger than the 3-1 price he'll likely go off at in those pick 4s. So for me, Desert Encounter is a single. If the 2 wins, I'll tip my cap. It's one of those favorites that I just think you try to beat if you can. But if you're going by the races that horse ran at Meydan, he should win this race. I'm just not sure he can replicate that based on his races elsewhere. But it's not like he's not good enough.
I hope the Desert Encounter that has run at Woodbine shows up and not the Desert Encounter that ran in Bahrain last year.
Yeah, that's let's hope he left the clunker in Bahrain at that point. But you look second off the layoff. Earlier this season, that horse ran 5th in the Prince of Wales at Royal Ascot. That's no slouch right there. I think Desert Encounter is going to be just fine.
Desert Encounter has lost to a Dabe I would lose all Australian racing cred if I did not mention that. That happened in England.
There we go.
So, all right. So obviously starting short, I go 2 deep. You guys both single, and Andrew, we're headed to race 10.
Yes, we are. Race number 10 is the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile. 3-year-olds and up going, you guessed it, 1 mile on the turf course. We've got a pretty big field signed on for this one, and there are some names and some horses that you will recognize if you're familiar with the turf scene. Raging Bull is the 2-1 morning line favorite, coming off a clunker in the Grade 1 4-Star Dave, a race that I was there for. That race was runner-up Set Piece, horse number 5 in the program, also shows up and is 5-2 on the morning line. A number of really cool horses showing up in this spot. You see horses like March to the Arch and Ride a Comet showing up in here. It's going to be a really fun race to handicap and a fun race to watch. JD, who do you want going first here?
Go ahead. Take it away.
I hate Raging Bull in this race. Absolutely, positively hate Raging Bull. This horse has won for his last 7 and has gone off at odds of 3-5 and even money in the last 2 starts. Hasn't had much in the way of excuses in both of those races. Again, if Raging Bull runs back to the best races we've seen Raging Bull run, he's good enough to win. But 2-1, that's an underlay, and I'm going to try to beat him. I'm going 5 deep in this particular race. I thought Set Piece ran gigantic in the Grade 1 4-Star Dave. Didn't break well, was dead last, had to circle pretty much the entire field, and was actually gaining a little bit on Got Stormy at the end of that race. Joel Rosario sees fit to ride for Brad Cox, and I just think Set Piece is the horse to beat. But it's not like there's a metric ton of early speed signed on in this particular race. The horse that I'm interested in at a really big number is going to be number 10 Space Traveler, who last time out ran 4th in the race formerly known as the Arlington Million. Hi, Mike Joyce. How you doing? This horse isn't a 1.25 mile horse. He's a miler. He cuts back to a mile, has run big races going a mile before. They thought enough of this horse a couple of years ago to run him in the Breeders' Cup Mile at Santa Anita, which was won by Uni with Got Stormy running second. Space Traveler didn't run terribly that day. He was beaten 5 lengths. Space Traveler's best race could absolutely win the Woodbine Mile. I'm going 5 deep, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10, taking a stand against Raging Bull. And if we get halfway home here, there's a chance this could pay really, really well, even with that 20-cent minimum bet.
Mike, we haven't talked a lot about pace here, and I see a potential spoiler from a pace perspective on your ticket.
Yeah, I don't really love the 1, but the 1's going to be in the lead turning for home. And there is not a ton of people that are going to be chasing him closely. It's going to be a lot of horses that want to come from way off the pace. I realized that the 1 last time out did get caught by Olympic Runner, but I really like the improvement we've seen from the 1 in the last 3 efforts here. It's a 6-year-old, so it's an older horse, but nice step up the last 3 on the turf. The buyers have stepped up each time. And to me, one of the things I really liked about the last effort from Town Cruise, horse runs second. Usually when you see a horse who goes out and makes the lead in a Grade 2, first time stepping up, and they get headed, they just right to the back. This horse showed some guts, was able to hold on for second. That means I think there's a little fight in here, and a little fight at 20-1 with a horse that's going to be on the lead, and I get Fukumoto. I'm interested, man. I'm going to take a little bit of a swing there with the 1 horse who I think is going to be the pace and will be in the lead turning for home. I really like Set Piece too. I mean, this is one of those situations where you go back and you watch the 4-Star Dave. And on that day, we had Raging Bull as the favorite. Raging Bull sat the perfect trip. He was the 3rd back from the speed on the inside, which is where you had to be at Saratoga. You had to save ground on one of the 2 turns. And he was sitting right back there, wheels out, and just empty down the stretch. Set Piece, on the other hand, like you mentioned, Andrew, bad break, had to swing wide, but was closing into a course where no one was closing into. It was a monster effort in that race, in my opinion. I think that was a huge effort that would win this race pretty easily here if we return to it. So Set Piece was the second one I included on this ticket. And then Ride a Comet is really interesting to me. I mean, you mentioned horses for courses. Ride a Comet's 2 for 2 over this Woodbine turf, 3 for 5 of the distance with another second place. The last couple of races were too long. Just draw a line through those 2. We're going a mile and a 16th, mile and an 8th. No, thank you. Get back to that set, those 3 races at a mile. All of a sudden, this horse is running numbers that definitely fit in here. Yes, I realize we lost to Raging Bull 2 back. That was Raging Bull's career best race. So if he replicates that, I'm beat anyway. So I'm going to look at Ride a Comet as a horse who I think enjoys this turf course, is sitting on an absolutely live effort, and is going to be ignored in the wagering in my mind because of those last 2 starts.
And, what's interesting, obviously you mentioned 2 for 2 on the course, but just Woodbine in general, 4 for 4 for Ride a Comet at Woodbine, 4 for 13 everywhere else. Definitely a horse for course angle. I'm going to kind of merge your two ideas here. And Town Cruise, I think, again, you have to include, it's a must include on this ticket because Town Cruise will be in the lead, turning for home. Reminder, we're on the main turf course here at Woodbine. So the Tapeta surface is the course inside of it. So this is the longest stretch run in North America. That's not Kentucky Downs, which undulates, and I don't know if we really want to count that. So it will take, some catching, but there will be a chance to catch it. And I think Olympic Runner will probably be in a good position to do that. And then Space Traveler, again, pretty much a lot of the same thoughts that Andrew had. Breeders' Cup Mile, bet the horse that day. Same jockey up, has been running well. That Mr. D, I will just throw that out for everybody. That was the slowest run route race in the history of American racing. I don't care what anybody says. 26 and whatever they ran. I don't know what happened that day. And the one thing I will say with Daisuke Fukumoto is he's been learning a lot of lessons. Obviously, last year with Mighty Heart, he went out way, way, way too fast and then did not take Mighty Heart at all with Tap It to Win winning this past weekend in at Woodbine in the Seagram. So he's learned his lessons. He knows he's got a good clock in his head. I do trust him with Town Cruise to set something reasonable. I'm 1-2-10 here. So basically what I'm saying with this ticket is I want to get through the first leg because I'm confident that we're going to have a price in the second. And then we'll see how the ticket progresses from here as we move to the first non-stakes race of the sequence, Andrew.
Yeah, this one's going to be fun to go through because there's a lot of directions we can go in. Race number 11 is a claiming event for older horses going 6.5 furlongs on the synthetic main track. And if that doesn't look like quite enough horses, don't worry. We've got at least one more on a second page of graphic. There we go. So horse number 10 in the program is your 5-2 morning line favorite. That's Reconfigure, who goes out for the Robert Tiller barn, was a decent second at this level last time out. However, that race was on turf, goes to synthetic. Now, the rule of thumb is a lot of horses won't mind going from turf to synthetic, but there are horses that definitely prefer one surface rather than another, and I think that's the case with Reconfigure. I just think he's a turf horse. And with that in mind, I don't know if you want me to lead off or if I'm just spouting. Okay, there we go. I'm going to try to beat the morning line favorite for the third race in a row. I'm going 4 deep in here using horses 4, 5, 8, and 9. The likely second choice is number 4, Solidify, who comes back to the right level after taking a shot going 7 furlongs against way too tough competition. I think coming back to the right level will wake that horse up. But here's something to note. Martin Drexler trains number 4, Solidify. JD, who trains number 9, Western Trouble?
I believe that would be the same trainer.
Yes, and Western Trouble ran for 10,000 last time out, is being entered for nearly 4 times the claiming price. Gee, I think I need to have that horse on my tickets. So I'll use both of the Drexler runners. I'll use number 8, Speedy Hans, who has won 2 in a row against probably weaker groups for trainer Mark Cassie. And I'll throw in number 5, Dixie's Gamble, who takes a big drop in class after running in graded stakes races for part of last year and the year before that as well. That's a horse that has clearly had his issues, but if he's right, he's absolutely good enough to win this. And if you're telling me I'm going to get 8-1 on a horse that won the Overskate Stakes back in 2019 in a $40,000 claimer, okay, I'll take that. 4, 5, 8, and 9. Once again, we're trying to beat the chalk. You'll see a theme here. Basically, my thinking is, okay, I'm going to try to turn $12 into about $600 or $700 by playing this sequence the way that I'm playing it. And I'm doing so in such a way that I've got significant coverage in legs 2 and 3 and some coverage in leg 4 as well. So 4, 5, 8, 9 for me, trying to beat the chalk. Who's with me?
I think Mike is.
All right.
I am. The 10 was the last one on my ticket, and I didn't see the morning lines. I usually don't handicap with the morning lines before I put this out there. Now he's seeing the chalk. I almost want to kick him off the ticket, to be honest with you, because I do agree that he's more of a turf horse, and I kind of like your 9 call there, too. I missed that when I was going through it the first time, so I think that's awfully interesting. My top pick here was the 5 horse. I kind of like these horses when they're dropping big time, and the trainer is a high percentage trainer, because it means the trainer knows what they're doing. They're spotting horses very well. The last 2 or 3 races, completely excusable. If you're a buyer handicapper, it's kind of where I usually start out, and then I use a couple other tools as well. The last couple where you're chasing 22 and change opening quarters, and then you fade, the buyer's not going to be that high, but who cares? You were fading anyway. That's why you're running a little slower there. Getting a much easier group here today. I mean, this is a big-time drop in class with a horse that I can point to probably 8 or 9 races that win this race. And so when I'm looking at these claiming level races, and I can find that many races, and we haven't been this low, sign me up for 8-1 as well. I'll happily take that. I went to the 1 horse on the inside, Kieran Road, as my second pick. We got a 26% trainer here, and I really like the last couple races. I like the fact that this horse was hanging out in that $40,000 level, then improved quite a bit, and now we're dropping back down in here. I think 6.5 furlongs is a good distance. You mentioned horses that are great on synthetic and not so good on turf. Got a 9 for 22 synthetic record with 4 seconds and 2 for 15 on the turf. 11 career wins, 9 of them have come on synthetic, 7 over this Woodbine synthetic course. And I think this 6.5 furlongs is going to hit this horse right between the eyes. I think that's a struggle for some of the other horses in here. So I'm going to go with the 5 and the 1 as my top 2 picks. I agree with you on the 4, so I ended up using the 4 horse here as well. I thought Solidify made a ton of sense, specifically the race 2 back. I'm a little concerned that we're going to be a little too far back when we're running into this, but I think that with the 6.5 furlongs, you might see Solidify get up there at the end. And then I use the 8 Speedy Hans as well, who I think is going to be sitting in a good position. Those last 2 races, I don't know enough about Woodbine to say that they were better or worse, but those last 2 both probably win this race, or at least put the 8 Speedy Hans in contention. And then the last horse on my ticket was Reconfigure, and I might reconfigure this ticket on race day and switch the 9 out with 10, because I do like the aspect. When you have a trainer that has 2 in the race and one's 20-1, you kind of, if you're using the other, you should probably be using that first one too.
And you stole a little bit of my thunder, as I'm having some wonderful internet issues that hopefully are not bringing me all pixely.
It wasn't quite pixelated, Andrew, from Arkansas Derby Day a year and a half ago, but you could see it from there.
And Kieran Road is my top choice in this race, and really, not a big barn, but Vito Armato knows how to spot horses. If you have access to the numbers, if you look at his record recently, going from allowance conditions to claiming conditions, he's one of the best out there in spotting horses here. So I think that's a huge spot that is hit right between the eyes. And then Dotted Line, I think really was chasing this horse kind of underneath in the big stakes last year, and hasn't really fired this year. A second place at the level. But and the last race wasn't great, but we didn't see the best of this horse this day. I'm willing to give Dotted Line one more shot here. Andrew?
I don't have it handy, so I'm going to need to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Please find me a win from either the 1 or the 2 in the year 2021.
Well, yeah, and yes, and here we go. We're going to go down the line. And 2020.
Yep, find me. Yep, 2020. Can you find me one, please?
So Dotted Line had a great 2019 as a 2-year-old, was one of the most impressive horses at Woodbine, and that's why they placed this horse in all of the big, the Marine, and then obviously stepped up to the plate trial, and then ran in the Queen's Plate, and then followed it up with a run in the Prince of Wales, and had a very strong third in the Prince of Wales.
You can't find me a win in 2020.
I can't, Andrew.
I love you, but you fall in love with these horses that don't win.
And that's why I have the 8 Speedy Hans on the ticket. Won the last 2, really finding the form. Kazushi Kimura has been on fire at Woodbine. Cassie is also, obviously, as always, on fire at Woodbine. So really, I think with the pace that we're expecting, probably from the 6, 10, and 11 here, I do think there's going to be enough pace for the 8 to run into here, going 6.5 on the Tapeta. I'm 3 deep here, 1, 2, 8, as we head to the final leg of the sequence. I'm really interesting to even describe this race. I don't know how we're going to do it, Andrew.
It's going to be a lot of this going on. Well, and you can't see it because the graphic was up, but I was covering my eyes and just randomly pointing. Yeah, this is an optional claiming event for non-winners of 2 life. We've got a field of 13 signed on in here, and we have a 3-1 morning line favorite that, shocker, I don't like. That horse is breaking all the way on the outside. Number 13, Kid Forrester, who is another horse that has not won in a very, very, very long time. But you can say that about a lot of horses at this level. And look, if you want to go skinny to start the ticket and really spread here, I can't say as I blame you. JD, who do you want to start here? I saw Mike raising his hand.
I like that skinny and spread idea, man. I'm 6 deep. Oh, okay. I'll kick it off. My top pick's 20-1. Why not, right? I like the 4-horse here. I think it's interesting. Candy overload. One of the things I think people struggle with when they're handicapping is being able to draw lines through races. And luckily, my black pen is really good at doing that. And with a horse like the 4, this is the perfect example. Okay, last race, 6.5 on the turf. Chuck it out. Race before, 2 turns, and it's grade 3, way over its head. Chuck it out. Let's go back to the 1/3 back here. June 20th, 2001. At this level, 3-year-old and up with this jockey comes roaring late in what you would expect to be a little bit of subpar effort because we're coming off this layoff. Only misses by a length and 3/4 of a length. So we're close to the lead. End up running second in that spot. I think this horse has probably improved since then, especially as we get more mature in our 3-year-old season. I see no reason why the 4 can't just mow him down here in this last half furlong when those leaders are going to be sucking some serious wins. So let's take a shot. Let's go with the 4-horse at 20-1 on top. Other horse I felt was a kind of a must-use here is High Heat. You mentioned how a lot of these horses haven't won in a while. Well, the 9-horse just won. I usually don't like playing horses who break their maiden and playing them right back. But this race is a freaking mess, man. So in this spot, I want a horse that's won recently that I do think is on the upswing. So the 9-horse High Heat was my second horse in here. I'm just going to start rattling these puppies off now. The 1 horse on the inside, Speedway, I think has a legit chance. Second time against this level, second time against winners. I would expect an improvement. I think the extra half furlong will make a big time difference for him. If you haven't noticed, 6.5 to me is a very different handicapping challenge than 6. I think people make that mistake quite a bit as well. The 7-horse, Have a Super Day. Apparently every horse named Super wins at Woodbine, so I had to include this one, right? We're switching barns here, 24% off the claim for the Martin Drexler barn. Getting Kimura up. Those two combined for 24% win percentage. We're getting back to 1 turn. The race he was claimed out of, draw a line through it. Go back to the previous races. We've got 3 or 4 efforts that are good enough to win it in here. Then let's go to the 5, Super River. Keep with the super theme. Again, I like the last one. I wish I could find a real reason to draw a line through it. I can't. But it was a $2.70 to 1 in that race, $3.75 to 1 in the previous race, and won at 6.5 furlongs to break its maiden. So I'm interested in the 5 here at 8 to 1 on the morning line. The last horse that's going to make that 50-cent ticket is the 10-horse Flying Curlin. This is one where I'm interested to see how good we are on synth. That's my main concern here. The race 3 back at Aqueduct, good enough to win this. The question is, are we going to be able to transfer that to synthetic? But this is kind of second off a layoff. It's first off a layoff, but we did run in July. And this is a drop in class for the 10 as well for Mark Cassidy, who obviously does very well here at Woodbine. So I'm going to go with the 1, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10. I think the lowest price of those 6 is the 9-horse, who's 4 to 1. And after that, we start bombing away.
All right, Andrew. You somehow slimmed this down again at the end. It's kind of the hourglass ticket here.
Little bit, yeah. So I went 4, 7, 11 in here, and I used a couple of the prices that Mike used for a lot of the same reasons. So I'm not going to go too far into that. The horse that is actually my top pick, however, is one of the 7 that he didn't use in this 13-horse field. So
great.
Got a lot of things covered. I like number 11, Tycoon, a fair bit in here. And I think it's another instance of a horse doing what it wants to do. Just throw out all the route races. Do yourself that kind of favor. Throw out the route races. Get that big pen that Mike was talking about and just draw lines through every race at a mile or longer. First time out at Oaklawn, I understand it was against maiden claimers. Horse breaks last, 21 lengths back at the first point of call, wins by 6.5. Okay. Not sure anybody saw that coming. Second time out, first start against winners, breaks last again, finishes fourth, but the second and third place horses both come back to win. They send this horse long at Churchill a couple of times, does not want to go long. They send this horse long on turf at Woodbine, not a turf horse, and they put the horse on the lead. Not quite sure what was going on there. Last time out, they dropped the horse in for $23,500, which is a very, very strange claiming price. I'm just going to throw that out there. Breaks last again. Gee, you notice a theme? Comes roaring wide, gets beaten less than a length. I don't know what he ran against that day. However, the buyer speed figure came back with a 73, and that's consistent with what this horse has been running going short. So I think Tycoon has every chance to fire a big shot in here. 8-1 on the morning line. I think the horse is going to get bet down a little bit. I don't agree with the morning line in this particular instance. Kid Forrester is 3-1 on the morning line. Has not. Well, hey, JD, let's play a game. When was Kid Forrester's last win?
I have to scroll. And it was
May
a
of
long time
2019.
ago.
I'll save everybody a little time. This horse is winless over the last 2 years and 3 or 4 months. So if that horse beats me, he beats me. I'm going 4-7-11 in here. And if there's a horse that I'm worried about, it's the 10 Flying Curlin, who takes a big drop in class for Mark Cassie. And I'm just not sure if this is a case where they're trying to find the right level for him, or it's a case where it's a gelding owned by some pretty big connections, and they're just trying to get a win before he moves on to another barn. But I'm going 4-7-11 in here, nothing shorter than 8-1 on the morning line. Again, my mindset in this is pretty simple. It's a $12 ticket. If this hits, it's going to hit for a nice chunk of change.
All right. So, in a quick recap, you guys have given out 7 of the horses in this race.
Well, there are 13 of them, to be fair.
And my top selection is on neither of your tickets, the 3 Frosted Icing.
Well, hang on. I know why. I know why you're picking this horse.
Let me get there.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 2 things here. So obviously, Androea, the the mare of this horse, 2 wins on Woodbine on the synthetic, was a strong performer. Had an injury and at Oaklawn trying on the dirt, and they retired, or it might have been Fairgrounds, can't remember, but it was a dirt effort. Good pedigree for that. Excuses the last 2 trips out, hopped at the start, 2 back, and got really tight last time out in the allowance field. This is a gigantic drop in class at Woodbine to go from those heavy allowance conditions to the starter allowance condition and the what is essentially an optional claimer. And 2L, this horse was very impressive up. But the key stat that Andrew was waiting for me to give an updated one on, in the last race of the day at Woodbine, when she has them out this year, Emma Jane Wilson is sitting at 37%. I'm telling you, it's crazy, and you should not factor it into your handicapping, but it is just an insane number for a 14% jockey in that but people keep track of it because it's so crazy, Mike. And that's a key here. And, I will give one thing here for High Heat, the 9. I'm really with Mike here. I don't like playing unless you're coming out of the top maiden condition at Woodbine. This horse is coming out of maiden optional claimer. I don't like playing these horses back, but the 2-back effort was one of the more impressive things. It was not Tycoon at Oaklawn, but it was very similar in that this horse tried to break out to the E.P. Taylor turf course from the 13 hole on the Tapeta, and was well last, and ended up losing by a nose and a dead heat for second. It was a strong effort, came right back out, won, slightly bumped up in figure. This horse seems to have some talent, and hasn't done anything wrong outside of that start so far. So I think is a must include on the ticket. And Super River, as is mentioned, super speedies in a turf race at in a sprint race at Woodbine. You've got any offspring of super speedy. is going to be live, especially this season, it appears. And this horse, outside of the lone clunker and the big maiden, has ran really well as well. So I'm 3 deep here for a $10.80 total. Andrew going with the $12 ticket, and Mike, you have 2 tickets here. We showed the $18 ticket for the 20-cent base wager, but you also have a $2 play.
Yeah, I want to thin it out a little bit here, because I think that sometimes in these sequences you have a lot of value if you can kind of nail one for a couple times, in this case 10 times. And since I'm singling the favorite, who I do believe will be the favorite in the first leg, I think this is a good example of kind of how to be able to try and build value around your top opinion. So, I mean, if this thing hits, just because we're singling the favorite in the first leg, if we get a 20-1 shot home on the line in the last, we still got a good shot at getting this thing to pay out. And same with the third race as well. I mean, the 1 horse there is 6-1, the 4 is 7-2, and the 5 is 8-1. So if we're able to get some of the prices home here a little bit later and beat Raging Bull on a $2 ticket, this thing could come back some pretty big numbers. So I ended up with the 2, with 4-5, with 1-4-5, with 4-9. For $2, that'll cost you $24.
Yeah, lots going on at Woodbine, and a lot of fun you can have playing this particular sequence. Take parts of our tickets you like, eliminate parts you don't. I swear, we went, 9 deep combined in that last leg in a 13-horse field. Use the 4 horses we didn't use, and you will print money. The important thing, though, get involved. It's a really good card at Woodbine. They're not alone. It's a fun weekend of racing all around the country. Belmont Park has a few big stakes races. Churchill Downs has their opening weekend. No turf racing at Churchill Downs, but still some fun races on tap, including the Iroquois, which is a Kentucky Derby points race that matters significantly for one trainer who, at least as of right now, cannot contest them.
It's going to be a fun day at Churchill. I mean, they've got a couple nice races there. I love those 2-year-old stakes races because you can get some wild things to happen. You have these unexpected jumps up that you see from the 2-year-olds, and so you can often get some nice prices home. We covered that late sequence on the Magic Mike show, so we covered those 2 races as well as the last 2 at Churchill. So lots of fun. It was fun covering those. There is a pretty chalky single, unfortunately, in there. We got She Dares the Devil running in the second to last. And there's not much in there can really beat her, so it'll be interesting to see if she's what short of a price or how short of a price she ends up going off at. But it's a fun day there, and as you mentioned, Belmont's card's great too. I got to go through the late pick 4 there as well, and it's a fun day of racing.
Fun day of racing indeed, and Mike, you do a lot of stuff over there at Racing Dudes, giving out your bombs. So talk a little bit about that and anything else you want to plug as we get ready to send the show home. With final thoughts.
For sure. So you can follow me at SomoBomb18, SOMOBOMB18 on Twitter. And you'll pretty much get all the content I throw out there if you follow me. Magic Mike Show, podcast where we do a pick 4 every Thursday. Monday, we do a recap of the previous weekend. Sometimes we throw in a little midweek pick 4 action there as well. Then racingdudes.com, we do race replays and race previews for every stakes race over $100,000 across North America. I love that part of it. It's actually how I got attracted to the site because there are actual replays in our recaps, which a lot of places don't have. So it's an easy way to go and check out the recaps. I do the Sama Bombs. It's a product on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you want to check out my picks at a full racetrack, definitely do that. I also throw up free grids, free pick 4s, things like that on the Twitter handle as well. And then started writing Samo's 6-pack. So if you like betting football, I'm throwing out a 6-pack of football games I'm betting every week here in the NFL. I was fortunate enough to go 4-2 yesterday, and I'm sweating an under here right now. So hopefully we can get some defense to kick in the second half.
Awesome.
Final thoughts. I'm going to clear the way. I know Andrew is going to get a little emotional here. I'm gonna set it up by saying it's been a tough few weeks for me from a comedy standpoint. Actually, a month, because I had my favorite comedian, growing up and still loved him to this day. Norm Macdonald obviously just passed, and I'm gonna let Andrew talk about his friend. But also Sean Locke, also a comedian that was battling cancer, didn't let a lot of people know. Very similar situation. My favorite comedian as an adult. He recently passed away at age 58 last month in the UK. So it's been tough for me in terms of comedy. And Andrew, obviously Norm, he's a gambler, and he loved poker. He loved gambling on sports. He loved the ponies. He loved everything. And you got a chance to know him during your time in LA.
He loved trivia too, and that's how I got a chance to know him. He and I were both regulars at the dearly departed Tompkins Square Bar and Grill's weekly trivia night, which was held every Wednesday about 2 miles north of LAX. It was a terrific, wonderful place that has now been converted into yet another trendy bar in West Los Angeles, which West Los Angeles did not need. And if it sounds like I'm being a little bit light, it's because that's what I think Norm would have wanted. It's not like we were super close, but we saw each other every week for about 2.5 years. We followed each other on Twitter. I put a remembrance piece of him on my website, andrewchampagne.com. And it's just a case where when you hear stuff that comes out of left field like that on Tuesday, I certainly didn't know he was sick. Nobody did. It makes you appreciate the time you spend with people that you love and people you enjoy being around. Norm was accommodating and gracious to everyone about everything. And that is not something that he had to do. He was just a good, solid guy with a significant gambling itch. And that's the way I used to describe him to people. And I said, in other words, he's my kind of human being. He was. The world's a lesser place now that he's no longer in it. Thank you very much for everything, Norm. Gonna miss you, buddy.
Thanks, Andrew, for that. And thanks, everybody, for joining us this week on Champagne and JD. Really thank Mike for taking some time out. He's been all over the place. And you can see us together trying to figure out Woodbine with you on Saturday on America's Best Racing, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can find it all there. And Andrew Champagne, obviously, taking a bit of a hiatus from all of the winning that's been happening at andrewchampagne.com. But he'll still have some spot plays at various places for you
and
to
NFL
follow.
plays too. I'll be throwing those out. I went 2-2 the first week. Took a lot of pleasure in shutting up a Patriots fan who tried to tell me Dolphins plus 3.5 and plus 160 on the money line didn't have a chance. I responded to his tweet by linking to the old Miami Dolphins fight song, which is a gem.
Miami Dolphins, yeah.
Not the T-Pain remake, the old one.
So I will say one thing that we didn't mention, and we'll go home, and Mike's being very gracious with the time. We appreciate it. We're now in the week anniversary of me being able to actually use a mobile app or a web browser to wager in the state of Arizona. I'm having to learn a lot because I can actually get a wager in like 30 seconds before the race gets off and not have to call 3 minutes at a time. So it's a brand new experience for me. So I'm appreciating that. And I'm going to send it home. We appreciate everybody joining us this week. Champagne and JD. Andrew, why don't you hit them with the catchphrase?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, stay off the beaches.
Take care, everybody.